Good evening. Welcome to the January 7th, 2019 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Mayor Pro Tem Baker lead us with the invocation, so if you would please rise for that and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day and thanks for the blessings you've given all of us here in Troy and throughout the country and world. We ask that you continue to bless us, providing your wisdom and guidance to us up at the table as we work through tonight's agenda for the city. Be with those out in the cold and the rain who need your help, those who are struggling with concerns, mental disorders, depression. Give them an extra ounce of care to help them seek the help that they need and have friends and neighbors help them as well. Please be with all of the children in the city of Troy as they are our future. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Councilmember Pennington?
Here.
All present. First on the agenda are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have a great proclamation this evening. C1 is a proclamation to recognize celebration of Yoga for Health, Health for Humanity 2019 from January 14th through the 30th, 2019. And I would like to ask Shri B. and Akishta Sashu to join me at the podium so I can present this wonderful proclamation. Face this way. What an honor and a privilege it is for me to be here this evening to present a proclamation to recognize the celebration of Yoga for Health, Health for Humanity. And I'm going to ask for a little help from my friends this evening because I'm a little challenged with trying to pronounce some of the words here this evening, and I want to make sure that I get them correct. So who wants to help me this evening?
I can.
Just come with me. Thank you. It's always good to have friends.
Yeah.
So, Yoga for Health and Health for Humanity is also called
Surya Namaskar Yajna.
just as I thought. Whereas, yoga is an ancient practice of keeping the mind, body, and spirit in good health. And whereas,
Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh,
better known as HSS, is a nonprofit social and cultural organization that aims to preserve and pass on ancient Hindu heritage and cultural values of universal brotherhood and selfless service to the next generation and to raise awareness of Hindu culture worldwide. And whereas January 14th, 2019 is celebrated as
Makar Sankranti,
a day that marks the change of the seasons of the sun as it enters the sign of Capricorn or Makar, which ushers in long days symbolizing sunshine in life. And whereas HSS is organizing the annual Yoga for Health, Health for Humanity, or
Surya Namaskar Yajna
2019, with a goal to create awareness about yoga and its advantages in achieving a healthy body. And of course, the mind and spirit, and hereby promote friendship, mutual understanding, and good health among all members of the community. And whereas HSS initiated this project in 2006, and participants from over 42 states in the United States of America have participated in this event regardless of individual faith and belief. And whereas the
Surya Namaskar,
also known as the sun salutation, integrates simple yoga postures that, along with breathing techniques, provide the practitioner with the key health benefits of yoga practice. And whereas the
Bharatiya Temple,
I knew that one.
you can say that.
That's okay. In the city of Troy has participated in this event for the past 10 years. Yoga enthusiasts, yoga studios, local schools, and community organizations from across the United States are committed to participating in this event. And whereas anyone, regardless of age, religion, gender, or race, is invited to include
Surya Namaskar
as part of their daily physical and spiritual practice to contribute to achieving the goal. So now therefore be it resolved that the Troy City Council recognizes January 14th through the 30th, 2019 as Yoga for Health, Health for Humanity,
You want to try that?
Surya Namaskar Yajna
Yep.
2019.
Yeah.
And be it further resolved that the City of Troy thanks, well, you do this one,
Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh,
okay, for their outstanding job helping to preserve and promote the ancient heritage and cultural values around the world. Presented this 7th day of January 2019, it's signed by myself, all members of City Council, so congratulations and thank you for what you're doing for our community. Thank you so much.
So yoga is essential for life. I mean, you need yoga. So Surya Namaskar is a great form of yoga. It has numerous health benefits that I have the written right here. So it improves blood circulation, improves eyesight, also helps with diseases and conditions related to the liver and thyroid, and basically cleanses the whole body. So Surya Namaskar is actually really useful for you, and we invite you to join us on Surya Namaskar Yajna.
we are very thankful to Troy City Council for giving this proclamation for third consecutive years. We really appreciate that in helping us participating in creating this awareness about yoga. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, once again, congratulations. There are no carryover items this evening or public hearings. I don't see that anyone has signed up for public comment on items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. There are no postponed items this evening, so we will move to regular business. I-1 are board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments this evening, so I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Baker for City Council appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to appoint to the Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees Retiree Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust, Mark Callis, for the term expiring 12/31/2021. Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilman Hamilton that we appoint Mark Callis to the Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees / Retirement Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust for the term that expires 12/31/2021. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes, and thanks to Mr. Callis for volunteering to continue on that important board.
And for the Parks and Recreation Board, to move the appointments of Gary Hoff as the Troy School Board representative for the term expiring 7/31/2019, and Lori Huber for the term expiring September 30th, 2021.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick that we appoint Gary Hoff, the Troy School Board rep, and to the Parks and Rec Board for the term that expires 7/31/2019, and Lori Huber to the same board for the term that expires 9/30/2021. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you to Mr. Hoff and Ms. Huber for volunteering to be on that important committee. That concludes the appointments for this evening, so we will move to I-2, which are board and committee nominations. I have one nomination this evening, and I would like to nominate Hermanth Tadapali, thank you, as the student rep to the Planning Commission for the term that expires, is it 9/5 of 2019?
Correct.
Thank you.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker that we nominate Hermanth Tapapali as the student rep to the Planning Commission for the term that expires 9/5/2019.
Support.
Okay. We've already had
Oh, sorry.
that.
Really.
Totally support it.
Just go in circles.
She's added support. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes, and thank you to Hermanth Manath that she volunteers for that important committee. Looking forward to that. There are no city council nominations this evening, so we will move to I-3. There is no request for closed session this evening. So next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Anyone on council wish to pull a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented and printed in the agenda packet this evening. Any discussion on the items this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I just want to point out on J5, recommended pay ranges for part-time classifications. We were supplied late this afternoon a pretty good explanation as to why that's necessary, and if people want to take a look at that document, it should be available on the website.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoderick.
Just wanted to highlight item J9, which is a request for a study session where we will hear a report back from the Green Space Subcommittee. I know a lot of residents are interested in that topic, and that will be on February 25th at 6:00 p.m., and I wanted to make sure folks were aware of that session.
Thank you. Any other comments on the consent agenda? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you were here on a consent agenda item this evening, they've all been approved. Next are memorandums and future council agenda items. There are none listed this evening, so we will move to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, and I will first call upon Marcia Bosenberger, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening.
New Year.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
I didn't really get to put all my thoughts together. I couldn't open the zoning that was sent to me. I get a 404 server error. But everything I keep reading over and over and over again when you just have to Google city council or cluster development on any social website, it's popping up negative. And I'm sure you're well aware of that. I was Avis had mentioned, Ms. Landmesser had mentioned a while ago about putting a moratorium, and I know that can't be done, but maybe there's a pause on the type of housing that is going through, because I hear and see so many disgruntled residents when it's coming to the 3-story townhomes that are going in. It seems everywhere. Squeeze the Sylvanwood one, which is coming up. 14 homes on an acre. And once again, that's 14 homes that are not including seniors or anyone with a disability. We have 40-some homes over on Torbrook that does not include seniors or anyone that has any type of disabilities or can't do stairs. So I'm naive in knowing what we can do, and I'm learning the process. But I'm wondering, what is it we can do is my question. Is it filing something, getting a petition going? Because I'm hearing it more and more, and I'm sure you are too, about the dislike and the massiveness of these 3-story structures. And I know there's more coming up in the pipeline. But anyways, that was just something that I had a thought. And I'm going to finish up my thoughts after I do some more extensive reading on the zoning. But I wasn't able to do that before this meeting. So you'll get another email from me. But okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Avis Landmesser, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening.
Avis Landmesser in Ottawa. I just first wanted to thank several members of the council for trying to educate Marcia and me and several other people about the other side of cluster housing. I must respectfully say I have not been convinced, especially in our situation on Ottawa, that it's the best solution for us. And from now on, I think every area of the city that is going to go through what we're going through is going to have to make those decisions on their own, because every case is different. Our case is particularly unique, we believe. I think you're probably aware that the developer who received approval for the homes off by John's Market there off of Squirrel Lake has purchased more property in our area. And I am completely knowledgeable about what he has in mind to do. And some of the questions that I have, I would like to ask the Planning Commission themselves, not the Planning Director, but the Planning Commission themselves. But their format doesn't allow questioning. You just can make comments. At least when I appear before your body, I can ask you a question. I may not get an answer. Quite frequently I don't. But at least I can ask it. But one of the questions I would like to know, if you approve our proposal in the next few weeks, I think it'll be coming up. And that's another question I wanted to know. I've been told that the city attorney's office is the body that, or the people that put these things on the agenda. Is that correct?
Ms. Landmesser, please speak to the board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions ourselves.
Okay.
But this is not a question and answer format.
Either.
Either.
Either, okay.
But
Well, you
we listen to what you
do
say,
try, and I appreciate
then we'll try to
that.
get
You're
answers.
very patient with me because I'm in a real steep learning curve. But I went back to the, today I went back to the, thank heavens for YouTube, because I can't remember things that, I'm lucky I remember what happened last Tuesday. But I went back to the 2016 where the cluster housing proposal, part of the zoning became effective. And not one person, not one citizen, whether yay or no, spoke about the issue to you. Nor, I mean, I assume that you had various conversations among your body, but neither did any of you. And I venture to say in the last 2 years that if you propose that today, this hall might be full of people. I don't know whether they would be for it or against it, but it would bring more attention to it than it did 2 years ago. So thank you very much for listening to me and being patient. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for being professional. Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up to speak for public comment on items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now is an opportunity for council to or administration to answer questions. First, I'll call upon City Manager Miller.
I just would like to make a clarification, Mayor and Council. There was a comment made that there were 3-story townhomes being built under the cluster option, and that's just not possible. The only thing that can be built are 2-story duplexes at the most in the single-family districts through the cluster option. The 3-story townhomes are not single-family residential.
Thank you for stating that. City Attorney Bloom?
Yes, just another clarification as well. Our office is not the entity that puts on the agenda items, but we are responsible for doing the agreement to save the green space, and so that's where we are. We don't have that done at this point in time for the Ottawa Street. It's not done, so it's not ready to be brought forward to you.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson?
Yeah, and I would like to address the timing when we went into the cluster ordinance conversation, and it was on the tail of I think it was a Mondrian property. They bought a large parcel of property. They completely bulldozed, cut every tree. It was a complete decimation of a property, and then they plowed a bunch of houses in there. So we discussed the cluster ordinance. Right after that, we also discussed the cluster ordinance as we got into the conversation about the tree ordinance, which we had never had as a city in our previous years. So this council, and I don't recall who all was on council at the time, but we had to grapple with the tree ordinance to try to eliminate clear cutting of properties and then create creative ways to allow developers to live within our city structure, you know, as it relates to yours and my property. So those are all things that we had to deal with. Otherwise, you would see people buying those two parcels on Ottawa, clear cutting them, putting a street in, and putting 13 houses in. So as we talk about the cluster ordinance, it is a better scenario than not having the cluster ordinance by a long shot. And I think there's a misperception in the city that this cluster ordinance is the worst thing ever, and it's really not. So we have to keep resetting the conversation so that people kind of get some clarity as to why we even got into that cluster ordinance conversation. So bear with us as we try to communicate that with you, and you have been very patient, and you've expressed your ideas to us, and we really are appreciative of that. But at the end of the day, we have to try to figure out how to get these parcels, and developers are very crafty. You know, they'll buy a parcel here, nobody will know. They'll buy another one, they commingle those two parcels, and all of a sudden, they clear cut it and start developing. And there's very little that we can do legally to keep somebody from developing their own property. So it is a tricky situation, and again, we appreciate your attentiveness to the circumstances. And with regard to the townhomes, I'll just clarify what City Manager Miller had stated. Townhomes, the ones that you see first on Livernois, let's talk about the Livernois ones because those are probably the most current. That was a gigantic parcel. It's surrounded by duplexes. There are no single-family homes in that area. All along those two streets that abut that piece of property are all duplexes. So that actually fits very nicely into the structure of that area. We couldn't put duplexes on the Ottawa property. That doesn't fit within the ordinance that we have. So you're not going to see townhomes inside subdivisions like that. It just doesn't fit, and it would not be approved. What you will see is single-family homes, especially in your project over there, that are on maybe a smaller scale, maybe a larger scale than some of the homes that are in that area. But what we're faced with in that section is 300-foot plus deep lots. They're very desirable for builders, and we can't control whether somebody buys that property, commingles properties, and puts a development in front of us to talk about. It's good that you had that conversation going with the planning department, because I think there have been a lot of modifications since first inception of that project, and at the end of the day, we'll have the best possible project in front of us to discuss. So again, thank you for your involvement in this.
Thank you. Any other? Councilman Hamilton.
Just a quick comment, just to reiterate what Councilmember Hoderick said. Please attend the Green Space Advisory Board meeting in late February. That's a great place to discuss what we can do with undeveloped parcels. And that's February 25th at 6 p.m.
Councilwoman Hoderick.
I do appreciate that you are working so hard to make sure you understand what I think we can all agree tends to be a very complex situation as developers come in. I think the conversations about the cluster ordinance sometimes are not rooted in what the reality of what it can do for our residents in property areas that abut a new development. The reason it was developed is Councilman Henderson mentioned, if you go back into YouTube or even as many conversations as we're having with you about your situation, the folks that saw clear cut and saw by right homes go in left and right, squeezed in together with no green space left, no buffer between their already existing neighborhood, they were talking to us very loudly about the need for council to do something. What can you do to prevent this? The clear cutting of trees, all these homes being slammed in here. That's where the cluster ordinance and the tree ordinance came from resident outcry, from us, and Planning Commission took the lead, trying to do something that was within the law, within our rights, to work with developers to make sure that whatever goes in is compatible with what is adjacent to it. That's what our master plan describes. It's what guides us. I think there's a misperception by residents that if we get rid of the cluster ordinance, it solves the development issue. So that's not the case. It removes an option for us in terms of how something is developed. So I've said before, I'm very concerned about a battle cry starting up that this is a bad thing. Okay, we could get rid of the cluster option. That does not mean development won't continue. It just takes away an option for our planning department, for our planning commission, for this city council, for residents adjacent to development areas to work with the developer to try to continue some measure of green space and buffer and trees and compatibility. So I think we have to be very careful about this conversation. Be careful what we wish for, because we can wish away an option. I think you had a question the last meeting too, where we approved a cluster ordinance in there was an environmentally protected area, and it allowed us to creep into that area by about, I think it was 5 feet. There were eagles' nests that people were concerned about. I couldn't remember all the details of it at the time you asked the question, but what we achieved with that was there's still the environmentally protected area, plus a double protection now as part of that agreement. I don't have the proper legal terms, so the city attorney would probably caution me, but what we achieved was double protection. When I voted yes on that, I left here feeling real good about what I had protected in that particular area. there's always a lot of detail with these that we don't discuss every nuance of it because we're researching it, we're following it like you are. I'm watching the Planning Commission meetings. We're asking questions. Not all of them are asked from the table, but I guess I just want to say I really want to speak for our planning department, our legal department, our Planning Commission, and this City Council. I'm not supposed to speak for all of us, but I don't think you all would disagree with me. Feel free to say if you do. We really worked hard to manage what is a built-out city and what it looks like in a built-out city when development continues and evolution continues. We've been working very hard, and I appreciate you continuing to work with us, continuing to educate yourselves. We'll certainly continue to explore options, but be assured we do hear residents. It's not like we haven't been listening. We care, we watch too. I think Councilwoman Abraham lived over near the area where the clear cut happened, and she was feeling the pain probably more than any of us on council. So we are working really hard to represent your views. We are within what the laws allow and working with our developers in the city.
Councilwoman Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. It's sometimes difficult to comment on the Ottawa situation, which I know is what drove you here and has driven you here for several months, because we don't have it formally presented to us. There is no public hearing sent yet, so the information that we have isn't necessarily complete. So please understand when you don't necessarily get an answer from us, it's because it would be premature for us to maybe make a statement without seeing that full picture. So I wanted to make sure you understood we weren't intentionally ignoring you, but we don't want to misspeak or accidentally pre-commit to a position. So I just wanted to point that out. I appreciate the very respectful way that both of you and some of your neighbors have been coming forward. I especially appreciate that you understand that each development is very different, and you need to evaluate each one uniquely, and it's not, and I think you can tell, having watched those council meetings on YouTube, that we don't approach it from a cookie cutter perspective. We're looking at each one and each requirement of the cluster ordinance and making sure that it's the right thing. And we haven't always agreed on it, and there aren't always 7-0 votes. So please understand, we are truly looking at it on a unique and separate basis. The other item I'd want to address is, we are listening very hard to our residents. We're certainly listening to you and the concerns that you've expressed. One of the things that we've also heard quite a bit from residents who maybe have larger homes and their kids have moved out and they want to downsize into something smaller, and Troy doesn't have the housing stock of I'll say smaller footprint homes or ranch style houses. And one of the things that the cluster development does is encourage those smaller footprint homes. And when you protect the land, that automatically means you build on smaller, you have smaller space to build upon. So that's one of the other reasons that the cluster development was put in place, because we are lacking a housing stock that is highly desirable. And as Councilwoman Hoderick said, we're a mostly built-out city. So when there are new homes being developed, the ones that people are inquiring about the most are the smaller footprint ranch, or I'll just say smaller two-story houses. So we're hearing your concern on the cluster development, but we're also hearing a lot of concerns from people who don't want to leave the city, but they don't have a place for them to go, and are going to Rochester Hills or Clawson or other communities where they do have that size house. So as you can see, we're balancing a lot of inputs, and we're hearing all of what our residents are saying. We're acting, and I hope, is the best interest of everyone and for the entire city. So I think we're all going to look forward to this coming to a public hearing, the Ottawa development, so that we can have the entire picture understood, known, communicated, and we can have that conversation at the public hearing and at council.
Any other comments from council or staff? think that covers it pretty good. Thank you. Next on the agenda, there are no council referrals submitted this evening, so we'll move to any council comments this evening. Okay, not seeing anyone step forward. Next are reports in the agenda. Any comments from council regarding the reports in the agenda this evening? I don't see that anyone has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. Therefore, there isn't any need for response. There is no closed session scheduled this evening, so thank you for coming this evening. We are adjourned.